And up next, Khabib's cousin, right? We got the Abubakar Nurmagomedov going against Jared Gooden. Jared Gooden had some struggles on the weight. I mean, he has to actually cut some weight. He was a zero point 0.5 over, I believe. So, I think that that's going to be a part of what makes it a bit difficult for him in the fight. But at the end of the day, against Alan Jouban, let's talk about how good his striking looked. He did get pieced apart pretty well. I think that if the fight goes down to the ground, which it most likely will, if, Nurmagomedov has his way, I think that's going to be issue. A lot of interesting bad blood between these two, with Jared Gooden saying, he doesn't really want to be sitting there and having, Russian fighters as usual, kind of just sitting on top and stuff like that. And I think Nurmagomedov took a bit of offense to that and said, why don't you just change sports? This is MMA. If you can't wrestle, don't be in it. Go boxing, go kickboxing, or, do something of that nature, because, you're in the wrong sport. So I kind of enjoy that there's some mediocre bad blood here. I think that short-lived UFC debut versus the long one is kind of interesting, right? We saw Nurmagomedov, the surprising loss. I think that was one that we all just took really by surprise. I don't think anyone saw that one coming. The sneaky triangle, that was something that I really took in. I remember watching that live and telling myself, like, hey, he's getting kind of deep on that, despite looking pretty good on the takedown. He was doing kind of well, but boom, I don't want to call it lucky, because that's some beautiful jiu-jitsu, right? Like, to be able to lock up a triangle that quickly. I think Abubakar had, pure sadness on his face. Like, I can't even believe how I felt that sadness. He, even when you look at the way David Zvada kind of approached him, like he stood beside him for a while. Like, I think that was like kind of the most, it was like bittersweet, right? Because you're watching the winning fighter really try his best to kind of comfort the losing fighter, but the losing fighter is literally so distraught. He's not making eye contact. He's just putting his hands into his face. Like, it was sad. And so, when you go and rewatch that fight again, you kind of get it twice over. And it's one of those things where I think he's going to learn from that, right? Like, he's going to know not to go so deep. I can almost guarantee Khabib's going to be in that corner. He seems pretty excited for that fight in itself. So, I think he looked amazing at the weigh-ins too, right? Like, I think that's probably the best he's looked in his career. So I'm really, really interested in this fight. I think that if the fight is able to go to the ground, it's party done for Jared Gooden. I just don't think that's going to be something that he's able to really withstand for 3 rounds. I think, especially with the weight cut situation, it's going to be tough. But against Jouban early on, I thought the takedown defense was pretty good. It was at least competitive there, and he was able to keep landing strikes. Now, if Alan Jouban has a better strike than Nurmagomedov, I mean, that's something to take into consideration, right? Because that's an improving piece of Nurmagomedov's game. So I really think that that's going to be something where we see Jared Gooden find some success if he's able to kind of avoid the early takedowns and piece him up a little bit. Now, cardio for days on some of these Dagestan fighters, that's an evolving part of their game too. And I think that's going to, cause some issues if this fight has to keep going and, start to see some time against the fence. You're in the clinch, you're trying to work pummels, and you're constantly trying to get this man off of you. I think that's going to be something that, Jared Gooden isn't going to deal with very well. I think it's going to be tough for him. And if that's the case, this is going to be a 3-round battle. At the same time, maybe looking for some kind of a finish, a quick little knockout. But I mean, at the end of the day, when you look at Abubakar's losses, I mean, this guy's a true prospect. At the end of the day, he takes tough fights. Magomed Mustafayev was his first loss, and I mean, that was a doctor stoppage. After that, it's just 2 really good submission losses. Once against Pavel Kushin, PFL, and that man actually has a win over Elder Alderov, who's actually the super lightweight champion right now at Brave. So the guys he's faced and lost to definitely have good credibility, right? Like, that's a tough UFC debut, and I think he was caught pretty off guard by how good David Zawada's, ground game was, and he paid the price. And I think going into this fight, it's going to be really different, and we're going to see a pretty good fight from a classic Nurmagomedov type fighter. And if his striking has improved, this is going to be a great fight. And I think Jared Gooden's going to do everything he can to avoid the ground. If you look at the numbers, I mean, this isn't a massive favorite, but right now you have Nurmagomedov sitting at a -225. And, if you have faith in the Jared Gooden, bandwagon to land that big blow and really to keep it standing, because if he keeps it standing for 3 rounds, he's got the good cardio like he did kind of against Alan Jouban, he might be able to piece them together and just actually pull off a huge upset. So keep your eyes locked for that one. I think there's some fun there, but, it'd be tough not to lean towards the Nurmagomedov way, if you ask me.